We have one speaker so far online, Daniel Furheit. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 5 minutes. I'll have my
Great.
timer.
Thank you. I'm surprised I'm the only one here today, but I see Global News is in the house, which is good to see. The media should be in these meetings more often. I think it's great. You know, we're all in this together was a mantra that still rings in my ears to this day, probably because it was a mantra recited by all three political parties when the COVID pandemic started. I think there's an ad to the effect. To me, what that meant was that we accommodate people during the pandemic who didn't want to wear masks, for example, for whatever reason. Some people I've learned through my advocacy on Twitter, Lion Advocacy, it actually causes trauma for abuse. So that's why some people didn't want to wear masks. So it involves being all in this together. It involves incorporating all these divergent groups, people who didn't want to isolate because of psychological or physical stress reasons, people who didn't want to take the vaccine because it didn't have the typical long-term testing associated with it, and because it had a different risk profile. So for me, incorporating all these different groups into the budget, most importantly, is this idea of not leaving anybody behind. In particular, and I know it's an awkward conversation to have, people who are injured by the vaccine. These aren't not a huge number of people, but more than expected. And everything I'm saying, by the way, is public information. You can find it. You can search my posts and using search terms. When this vaccine injury support program was launched in December of 2020 by the federal government, it was launched with this whole idea of we're all in this together. And at the time, the Prime Minister, rolled it out on the basis that vaccine injuries are quite rare, 1 in a million. And so we're going to set up this program because we're all in this together. But what that number 1 in a million actually was for prior vaccines, not the current, not the new one that was being rolled out. And there was no basis to make that number, to make that estimate. Moreover, the vaccine injury support program was a condition of getting the Pfizer vaccine. That's in the actual contract with Pfizer. I want to make sure I'm not running out of time here. Where does it say my time? How much time do I have left?
You have 3 minutes left.
Because I need the last minute to ask myself the questions because nobody on the board does, on the committee. That contract said that you have to create a vaccine injury support program. It's a semi-public private partnership, that program, that injury program. So meaning it's administered by a private organization that's a for-profit company. The portion of money going to those who are injured from the vaccine versus the administrator in the budget was 63% to the administrator, 37% to the injured. Think about that. The people who got injured from this thing. And then again, although more than expected, there's 181 payouts under the vaccine. I think 180, double check me on that one. 180 people that got compensated for the vaccine injuries. But there's a queue. There is a queue forming, and the way they're managing that queue is by making it extremely thorough, a thorough investigation into the injuries. So you can delay, you stretch out the payables. So it's not working. It's not working. I can't get anybody to do anything about it, except now this board can do something about it. What I realized was that this board has a budget. We're all in this together. It could actually put aside a little bit of money, because it's not a lot. The 180 people that got paid, I think the injuries were anywhere from 10,000 to the highest was like 150 or 200,000. You can double check me on that one as well. But the budget, it way exceeded its budget. Way exceeded the budget. And again, I'm not here to scare people away from vaccines. Like Thailand had a program where they immediately paid out people, like with anybody who got injured within 30 days of the jab, got some money. And it didn't turn people away from vaccines. It was, it just adjusted people's expectations. So I'm proposing to this board. I saw there's a $4 million pay increase. I don't like, you folks have worked hard, and I wouldn't want, but a portion of that can go to the vaccine injuries, and streamline the process. It doesn't have to be this way. And then anyhow, how much time do I have for asking myself questions?
You have 40 seconds left.
40 seconds. Do you really think this committee, at this point in time, can create that kind of budget And whether that would create a conflict, given that Toronto Public Health was very aggressive in terms of promoting the vaccine. I think it might build trust. I think it might show a bit of, we are a work in progress, that we are taking steps to address not the conspiracy theories, not the anti-vaxxers,
5 seconds.
people who had legitimate concerns. We're all in this together. That's any questions?
Okay,
You don't
thank
over
you.
to them. Yep.
Any questions for Deputant? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other speakers on the online or in the room? Seeing none.